Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. It is Monday. It is a happy Monday. It's a happy Paper People Monday. I know we're a minute early or two or maybe four. But I just sitting here waiting to see y'all, so thought we'd go a little early. Give people a chance to get in. Hey, Glennis. Hey, Laura. Hey, Margie. Margie's absolutely ready. Well, I had a couple minutes. I'd maybe try to clean up my mat here. Now and then got to get all the glue off of it, right? So today, I know I've mentioned this before and we just haven't gotten around to it. There's so many things we can do with scraps. We were talking in admin the other day that a couple of years ago, we did a whole series, so many different things to do with scraps that I kind of got scrapped out and figured everybody was just tired of seeing stuff with scraps. So we haven't really done any scrap busting projects or videos in quite a while, actually. And realized that maybe it's time to do it again because we all build up a ton of scraps. Sorry about this little scraping noise, but now that I'm cleaning, I want to get the glue off. So it's time to either use the scraps or cut them to usable sizes for other projects or throw them away. Move them along, throw them away in the round file. Hey, Carrie. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Keep your mind off this coming Thursday. Probably the last you'll hear from me is I can't craft, watch, and chat at the same time. So, Laura, I do understand that. That is the, I guess, the con when you're crafting along. It's hard to chat at the same time. But I'd rather have you using your scraps and making something. So enjoy it, and then post your pictures in the group afterwards, and you just do it, and it's all okay. You can jump back in at the end and comment on what you've done. So who is going to craft along today? We're going to use some scraps. We're going to make some cards. I've got 3 cards to show you today. I will be using a paper trimmer. Even just a small one is fine. And a scoreboard for the base of the card. Now, we could just make these bases that are ready to go, and you could glue them onto the actual card later. But if you're like me, you'll do that, and then you'll set it aside and get onto some other project, and it will never get put onto the card, and so it's not ever a usable card. So I will walk you all the way through this start to finish so you can get your project complete. There's nothing worse than starting a project, the workshop's over, and you haven't completed the project. I like people to have completed projects at the end of our time together. So a small scoreboard, any scoreboard will work, and a small paper trimmer will work. So we are, hi, Melanie. How are you? Glennis is going to make along with us today. Awesome. I expect Glennis to be making along with me. That's why she wasn't wanting to be on live, so she can get busy and craft. I know she's got lots of scraps she wants to use up too. So, and a lot of us, we do all these other projects. We don't really stop and make cards very often. And maybe it's not even our favorite thing to do, or maybe we can't think of what to do, how to make them. So there are a lot of ways to use scraps to make some nice cards. I'm just going to give you 3 easy ones today. And I will say these are 3 cards for the non-card maker. Card makers will like them too, because you can get as creative as you want. But those of us who don't consider ourselves card makers and think, oh, I can't make nice cards like those people do, these are for you because they are super easy. Super easy. Use Christmas scraps and get your Christmas cards. Oh, yeah. Melanie, yep, I am not a card maker either. But now and then it's nice to have some cards on hand, that are handmade that you could just write something in and give to somebody as a thank you. I've got a lot of thank you cards recently as thinking of you, even a happy birthday, last minute kind of thing. Here's the other thing. The cards that I'm going to show you today are also techniques that can be used as journal cards in your journals or junk journals. They can be used as bookmarks. There's a lot of things you'll see as we do this, that there's a lot of things that you can do with them. So not just cards. So if you've got some scraps handy, I encourage you to grab some and or at least write down, the steps of this, and then make some and please post them in the group so that we can see. So I have a giant bag of scraps and a bin and another box, and I have way too many scraps. Something needs to happen with them. So I was going through scraps to determine which ones I wanted to use to make these cards. And I actually found this little stack of rubber banded like this. And probably because they're all vintage type patterns and they would go really well together. And I don't even remember what I cut them for, but they're 1.75 inches. So are the rest of these. And that's a good size that can be used for a lot of things, card making or journal cards. Have 22 strips. Yes, that should work. Can't craft along today. We'll make this sometime in the future. Awesome. Carrie, you're going to have some time. Right, Melanie? Now, yes, I agree. Okay, so I have in here squares. I have some 1 3/4 inch squares. I also have some I think these are 1 1/4. Yeah, I have some smaller 1 1/4 inch squares, and I have 1 3/4 inch squares. I made the card. I made a sample with both sizes so that you can see it. You could use any of the sizes that you want for this one. You could use, I don't like to go lower than 1 1/4 inch because that's, it's pretty small. It's small enough and you want to be able to see them. But anything larger than that you want. So let me start with, let's start with this one since I already said that. Got to move this over here. Hang on just 1 second. All the cards that we're going to make today are A2 cards. I'm not a card maker. I had to look up what the size is because I don't know. I hear people say A2 and I don't know off the top of my head what any of those sizes are. So this is an A2 card. That means that the card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And it can open this way. It can open this way. It could be the long way and open this way. But it is 4 1/4 by 5.5. That is an A2 card. We are going to build our card on a base that we're going to glue onto that. And this base is just 1/4 inch smaller. So 4 1/4 by 5.5. Our base is then 4 inches by 5 1/4. So you can cut this later if you want. I'll set that aside. And you're going to need a base to build on. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So cut yourself a 4 inch by 5 1/4. Typically, I would use black or white on these, and then they can go on any other color. They could go on a white base or a black base or another colored base, and that is up to you. I'm going to give you a minute to cut a 4 by 5 1/4 and show you these two cards. So this one, there's two samples of the same card, but using the two different size squares. This one is the 1 1/4 inch square. Now, I did not put a sentiment on these yet, and I'll tell you why. This is a 1 1/4 inch square, and my base piece is white. They're glued on white. And then that piece is glued on a nice piece of green cardstock. So this could be used this way. It could be used this way. I always have a white, a black, and a gold gel pen so that I could write in any of these. I could write with the gold on this, or even the black or white would work just fine on this one. And if you don't like to do that, you can always get another piece of white cardstock that is matching to the front base. That's 4 by 5 1/4, and glue that in here. This is obviously not big enough. Glue it in here, and so you have that to write on. Okay. I would put a sentiment out here, and I might, I probably would like something dark around it, so I would either ink the edges or maybe cut 2 and shadow it, behind with a black and then a white, something to highlight it. But I'm not sure how I'm going to use this card, and that's why I didn't put the sentiment on yet. I don't know if I want it this way or if I want it that way, or what sentiment I want on it. So this also could be stuck in a journal as journal space. So you could put an image on here, some image that goes with the journal. It might be a bird or a flower or something, and then have some journaling space, and that could go in a journal. Now here's the same card. Hi, Sylvia. Yay. So glad you're here. Not tardy. We started a couple minutes early, so no worries. Stuck in a square. Uh-oh. Hang in there, Margie. Hang in there. We need you. So this is 1 1/4 inch. This is 1 3/4 inch squares. The card size is the same. They're both A2. But you can look at that and see the difference. For this type of card, I don't like to go much larger than 1 3/4 inch, because when you get a bigger square, say a 2 inch or more, you can't get enough squares on to be able to see the variety. And then it's just like, 2 or 3 and a bunch of little pieces, and it just feels awkward to me. But you can use whatever size you want. So this one is also glued on a white base, and then that white base is glued onto a black folded card. Same thing, could be used either way. You could write with a white gel pen in here. It could be used as journaling space in a journal. Now, here's another thing. I have a paper punch that is 1 3/4. So these were real easy. I just punched them out. The 1 1/4, I don't. I'm going to show you a couple of tips to cutting those easy. But there is other shapes that look really cool when you do this style. It's almost a quilting, paper piecing type pattern. But if you have a hexagon, or an octagon might work. A hexagon is great, or a punch or a die that has multi-sides. They need to be squared. I've got some, but the sides are tabbed in or, rounded or something. They need to be square. But if you've got a die that has square edges, straight edges, and it's hexagon, you can punch out a bunch of those, and you can do this with that. All you do is take the first hexagon and place it just like we're going to do with the squares, and then you just start butting the others up to it. And when you get to the edges, you cut off the edges. You'll see how we're going to do that. Super easy. Oh, did you get? Yes, love the white tray. I think you have a couple of these, Sylvia, somewhere. So let's do this one. I'm going to move this aside, and just sitting down and cutting or punching out a ton of these, this just leaves me the room to make a lot of cards all at the same time. So I just sat down and punched a bunch. You could punch or cut them while you're watching a movie or something. And then you can sit down and make a bunch of cards all at the same time and batch make those, which is, kind of really helpful. Not have to do one at a time. So I've got some 1 1/4 inch strips here, and I stopped shy of getting the little squares cut so that I could show you just a couple of tips. And I probably should have before I cut the big papers down. These are all from scraps. Everything I'm doing is from scraps. So when I say big paper, nothing was bigger, I don't think, than 6 by 6. Or sometimes it's a 12 by 12 and most of it's used. So there's a 4 inch strip of a 12 inch piece of paper. So the easiest way to get these, let's say this was all one piece of paper. If this was all one piece of paper, pretend, and I want to get 1 1/4 inch strips. So this one is 5 inches. I'm going to set the paper on here. Instead of putting the paper over here and trying to get 1 1/4 and hold on to this little tiny bit and not let it slip, that makes me so much slower. And I like to do things the quickest that I can, most efficient that I can, and also still get nice cut lines. So I'm going to put the piece of paper down here, and it's 5 inches, so that makes it real easy. I'm going to start moving this over by 1 1/4 inches and chopping off the other end. So I would go to 3 3/4. That's 1 1/4 inch. Okay. And I would cut right there, and that would give me my first one. And then I would go 1 1/4, and that would give me my second one. And then I would go 1 1/4. That would give me my third one. And I'm left with 1 1/4. So that's the fastest way to get those strips. So the same thing when you want to get now the little 1 1/4 off of here, instead of going here and cutting off this little 1 1/4 and having to keep doing that and moving it, take it all the way to the end. And it's easier if it starts on a line. It doesn't even matter what the line is. It could be 6 inches. It could be a 3/4, a half, a 1/4, doesn't matter. So this one is 6 inches long. So I'm just going to move it over 1 1/4. Move it over 1 1/4. Move it over 1 1/4. 1 1/4. And what I have left is 1 inch. Okay, I'll set that aside because it might, oh, did I have 2 in there? Did I do 2 at the same time? Awesome. That's even better. It's not super thick paper, so 2 worked great. So maybe I'll do 2 on this one too. So that is the easiest way to cut 1 1/4 inch squares. Hopefully they're both lined up so that I get them even. It's a whole lot easier to hold the larger part of the paper than to hold a tiny 1 1/4 inch square and hope that it cuts straight. If you're like me, it always gets pulled off, and then I go to use them, and my squares aren't exactly straight. Only the healthy shapes. All the scraps have been punched or used for dyes. They've been put to rest, retired, put out to pasture. I agree with you, Sylvia. Once I finish doing this and, cutting scraps down to, really usable sizes, I'm going to go through and just get rid of all the little teeny tinies that I really don't need. Are they usable? Yes. But I will say this. I've said it before recently. The problem with our paper art is that, let's see, I need 1 1/4 right there. The problem with our paper art is that everything is usable. Literally everything is usable. And if we keep everything that is usable, we end up with a situation where there's stuff piled or stored or however you do it, and you can't find anything because there's just plain too much. So we do have to be ruthless, as Sylvia said, and really look at things. I know this is usable, but am I going to use it? Do I have time and space to use it? Or do I already have so many of them that I probably wouldn't even get to these? That's 1 1/4. Because there just isn't time to use all the ones that I have. Honestly. And we really have to be honest about that. I hope I didn't cut that wrong while I was talking. I have a feeling that one of them was not on 1 1/4. Those are not the same length. Okay, this one, I'm going to cut off the end because I need it to start where I can measure it. So most of the others I have already pre-cut. I did not cut these strips, so I could do that with you. So this gives you time to cut some squares, the 1 1/4 inch squares. But seriously, junk mail envelopes, they're great. And I was keeping them because the insides are different on all of them. Okay, through confession, how many of you have a box or a bag or a bin of junk mail envelopes? They have windows in them. They're cool. They're usable in junk journals, and the insides have different designs. So it's nice to have all those different designs. You can make different things to show the different designs. Oh, that's cool. Digital papers. So once you collage them down and then make a digital paper, you don't necessarily need to keep that original, right, Melanie? Unless you use it to make something. Is 4 too many? Yeah, I had a huge amount. And I realized I have more of these envelopes than I even have time to use. And maybe if the envelopes was the only thing that I did, if that's all I do, then I would probably have time to use them. But it's not all I do. There's so many other things that I want to do and like to do. So they're just taking up a ton of space. So I went through and I chose a handful of my favorites and I chucked all the rest. And before you think, oh my gosh, think about this. When is the next time you're going to see a junk mail envelope? Tomorrow in the mail? Maybe today if you haven't picked it up. How long would you have to wait if you needed or wanted a couple more junk mail envelopes? A day? Maybe 2 or 3? You could probably even check with a friend and get some of theirs. But literally, those are showing up at your door in your mailbox every single day. So you don't have to wait long to get them. It's not something that is hard to come by. Don't keep them. Throw them in recycle. Keep somebody employed. Same thing with packaging. I had several bins of really cool packaging. All cool, all useful, all usable. And it's just taken up so much space and it's in the way of me getting to some other things. I don't have room for it. My studio is the container for all my containers, and I really didn't have room for it. So I went through, picked one container and went through it all and picked my favorites of those, and trying to sort these and not doing a very good job, and put them in that container. And now if I see some cool packaging, I look at it and go, okay, will this fit in my container? If it will, I can keep it. If it won't, then either I can't keep it or I have to take something out of the container that I like less than that and get rid of that in order to make room for it. Okay, so there are, let's see, anything as small as a hole punch or smaller inclusive. Oh, that is tiny. Yeah, Melanie, collage that all together. Use that to make ATCs or tags. Scan it in. You've got a nice digital of it. You don't have to worry about hanging on to it. Cardboard. Yes, cardboard, packing paper, all those kinds of things. Yes, I agree with Sylvia. Carrie, doodle me a slip of paper. Oh, smaller than an inchy. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We've got our 4 by 5 1/4 base right here, and we're going to just start putting these on. So you could do this. You could lay some of these out. You could lay them out and decide where you want them. I mean, that is an option. It is always an option. Like this. And you just start laying them out. Or you can just start gluing them down. And I guarantee you, no matter which way you do it, it's going to work out. No matter which way you do it, it's going to turn out just fine. So I'm going to just start gluing them down. And if you have, these happen to be black and white scraps because I did some other colors. And so I thought, well, I'll use my black and white scraps because I got lots of those. But if you have a variety of colors and all kinds of different colors, that's awesome. Just start putting them down randomly. See, I could put these end to end. I'm going to go this direction just to make sure I keep them lined up. All I'm going to do is a little bit of glue on each one. And once you put the first one down, that's your guide. You can leave a little bit of space, and you can choose how much that space is. It could actually be a little or a lot. My only criteria for myself is that that space is even. Try to be even all the way across, which will keep everything in line. And as you go along, let's see here. It doesn't even matter what direction you go from one to the other. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not organizing ahead of time which squares are going to go where. The only thing I'm trying to do is pick up one that has a lot more dark on it next to one that has a lot more white on it. That's all the thinking that I'm doing about it. But I'm not looking at, did I already use that pattern or that color? Not worried about that. Just getting them down. So I'm going to just watch my space in between. If I have the same space, they will be even, and it'll end up even. If you had, start color coding the boxes. I'll help talk you down as I scroll away. That's funny. Oh, well, that's another good question. How do y'all store your scraps? I have seen so many different ways that people organize and store scraps, or don't organize and store scraps. Lots of different options there. So I am curious, how do you store your scraps, and do you organize them, or do you just store them? All right, so we're just gluing. You can use up quite a few scraps doing this. And you can see how if you cut a bunch of strips, 1 1/4 inches, and then you sat down and just whipped those strips into little squares, and you sit down with a whole bunch of squares, you could do base after base right here like this, then go back and glue these onto the actual cards. And you can actually create or accomplish a lot batch making these in a very short time. I like things that I can do while I'm watching a movie or something. Makes me feel like I'm working on my cleaning and organizing while I'm also relaxing. Often pretty up boxes to use to store it. Yep. Organized in trays that stack. Okay. Hate to see things that destroyed that can be used, especially buildings. Yes. Yes, I agree, Sylvia. And that's part of our problem in this art, is because we know that everything can be used, and we hate to get rid of things that actually are useful, that can be used to upcycle in our art. It's kind of hard to do. But let me ask you another question. Have you ever not made something the way you want because you couldn't get to or couldn't find the supplies or the tools that you know you have to make that thing? So you just substituted something else or bought another one or anything like that? Have you ever done that? Anybody ever done that? If we can't get to, find, or access the things that we do have, it really is not doing us any good to hang on to them. And then all we're doing is becoming the recycle can. Yes, I love rolling things. A lot of us, as we age or have health issues, have that problem. I also find, yep, so taking the nice advice you gave us. So paperback project, yes. Why am I busting you out? I'm confessing my own true issues, and my sister Sylvia, you happen to be right in there with me. Those pouches are wonderful for organizing things like that. Some people organize the scraps by color. Just kind of, when you look, and don't think too much into that. When you look at a scrap, you look at the piece of paper, what's the first color that jumps out at you? That's the color it goes into. Don't think too hard about it. Don't let it take you, too long to do. I also have duplicates because I couldn't get to it or couldn't find it. I knew I had it. There's actually, Sylvia and I were talking the other day. There is nothing more frustrating to me than having an hour to make something and wanting to go in and sit down and create. And I have to spend that hour looking for the things I want to use before I can create. And now I'm out of time. I really hate having to do that before I'm able to create. And if you do as well, part of that problem is having too many things. Just because they're all usable doesn't mean I need to keep them all. I am not responsible for the entire planet, and neither are you. And what I found is that as I get rid of things and I have easier access to other things or less to choose from, I actually use them more. And get more things made because I can see them, I can get to them. I keep putting glue on the whole thing when I only need it on a portion. So you go right up to the edge here. Just build off of the ones that are already there, keeping your things squared. And let's see. As soon as you put the first one down, and this is why you need straight edges on this one. You can see that this wouldn't work with circles or with a die or a punch that has round edges or cut in edges or corners. You need square edges to guide off of. And let's see. We're down to only needing a couple. I'll get this one here. And this one here. Okay. So any die or any punch that you have, and actually I've got these two tiny ones right here that I will probably fill in. So here we go. So you can use scissors to cut these off, or you can use your paper trimmer. I'm much better with a paper trimmer than scissors. So get some of that glue off. I'm just going to bring this up here, line it up, chop those extras off. If it's not quite dry, I end up with glue on my paper trimmer. It does not make me happy, but sometimes I'm impatient and don't wait. That one is not dry. And so see the glue still on it. Okay. Okay, so I've got two tiny little triangles here. Got one teeny tiny one here. Probably don't need to mess with that one, but I will mess with these two over here. And what I'll do is just take, I'm just looking for one that is not right there, so it's not next to its own pattern. This one would work. It's just a tiny bit. Just needs a tiny bit of glue. I mean, really is a tiny bit. You probably wouldn't even need to put it there. Could use any of the tiniest pieces. Let's see what can go here. I could just use this little black one. Okay, there we go. Just give those a second to dry so I don't just pull them off when I go to cut them. Okay, look how quick and easy that came together. Very good insight, Sylvia. Sometimes when things happen around you, it gives you pause to reflect on your own life. I can't make with so much stuff in the way. And are some of these things in the way preventing you from getting his scrapbook done? Because you couldn't find things, or there's just always too much in the way to clean up before you can get started. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to take this card base. Okay, if I have plenty more black and white scraps here. Okay, so I could make several more probably of this. I would grab these bases and I would just keep gluing and using them. And I would keep these offcut pieces for when I get down to a small triangle, even something this big, I could use, something like this and not have to use a whole new piece. So you'd be amazed at how many card tops you can get out of just a bunch of squares that you cut. When I'm done and I've basically used up all the squares that I want to, and that's that, all of this is going to get swiped off right into the trash. I'm not going to keep the teeny tinies. I have plenty more scraps. And even if I didn't have any more black and white scraps, is anybody nervous that I maybe don't have any black and white paper? I mean, come on. Even if you don't have any scraps, do you have plenty of paper in your studio or your craft room to make more scraps? And do you ever sit down and go, I need to make some scraps to create with? Or do we create other things and then along the way go, I've got all these scraps now, I need to do something with the scraps? Sylvia, I thought about hearts on this, and I think there is a way to use hearts. And I think it would be kind of cool. I have heart punches. I probably should have punched some out to try it, but I'll show you what I was thinking, because I think it would make a cool card, actually. Decide which direction. I don't even know which direction you want to put it. Probably doesn't even matter. There's words there, so I'm thinking, should the words go a certain way? There you go. Okay, so we just did a card top, put it on a card base. I punched out a scallop. I could put the scallop anywhere I want. It doesn't even have to be that large. And then I punched out just a circle to go inside it. And I can stamp a sentiment on that. And there we go. Or I could just die cut a sentiment out of white cardstock and put the white sentiment on top of here, and it would stand out really nicely. Okay, use my scraps in my daily journal. Yep, I'm simply helping out scraps with a new bag for the second half of the year. There you go. Okay, so that is the first card, and we used 1 1/4 inch squares to make that one. Okay, so these open this way or this way. This one opens the long way or this way. You can make any you want. I happen to have some strips cut from something else that were actually, what are they, 4.25 and by 11, which is 5.5 folded. So they were already prepped for card bases. So I'm going to use them. This type of card, it doesn't matter to me which direction it opens. Okay, so let's look at the second one. The second one is also using squares. Here's the second one. These are 1.25 inch squares. They don't all have to come from the same paper. There's at least 5 different paper collections in here. They just have kind of sort of similar color tones that I thought would go well together. I've also made it with just all the colors that are in the scraps, and that works as well. So this one, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You need 8 squares that are 1.25. And again, it's going on the base that is 4 by 5.25. Okay, and the orientation is portrait. So I have pulled out, so I wouldn't have to spend time doing it. I pulled out 8 squares that I am just going to, I'm going to set them on here to see if I like where they are, how they are, see if I want to move them around at all. Now, the trick to making this one work is to put your 4 corners on first. So that's just the way that they were stacked. I'm just going to put them out there. And honestly, there's no 2 of the same next to each other. So I'm okay with it. I'm just going to go with it. So I'm going to move these off. And the trick, as I said, the key to this one working is to get your 4 corners on first. So we'll start with 1 corner. I'm going to do it that way. And I'm not going to leave as much space on this one as I did on the last one, because I don't think that there's as much space to be left. Maybe close. So you can cut out a bunch of these squares, cut a bunch of strips, then just snap them into little squares. And this is just 2 cards that you can make with those squares. There's a lot of different ones. I knew we wouldn't have time to go into a lot of them. I'm a card maker. I am now a card maker. I can officially call myself a card maker. You know what? We're artists. We can make anything, everything. I don't like to pigeonhole because I want to try everything. I may not want to make cards every single day, but I like making a card now and then. Maybe one of these days you'll get me to scrapbook, Sylvia. I don't know. I do like making mini albums. It's kind of close. Margie back. Yay. Okay, so there's the 4 corners. And the reason it's important to get the 4 corners in first is because that is going to determine how much space you have between them when you place the others. So I will start with the top and bottom one that have a finite space in between those 2. So all I'm trying to do is get about the same amount of space between them, center it, and if it's not exact, I'm not going to worry about it because there's a reason it's handmade. Have you ever received a handmade card that looked like it came from a factory and you wondered, did she make this or did she buy this? I can appreciate a beautiful card. I also like to be able to tell that somebody made it and appreciate their time and effort. Okay, now these 2 need to both fit in here. So I'm going to look at them to see how much space there is between them. Not a ton. Not a ton of space. I probably could have gone a little closer to the corner. on the other two. And it's okay. I'm just going to make sure that they fit. I'm not going to push it down too hard in case I need to move it. You could also use a glue that will give you a few seconds to move. This one, not so much. As long as I can see white in between them, I think I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Not much white, but there's a little. Move this one up. Nope, not moving that one up at all. All right, so there's your 8. There's your 8 pieces there. Then you're going to need 2 pieces. So with the colors that are in here, I took a peach colored background and then white on top so I could stamp my sentiment. This one's black and white, and I have a white background, so I'm going to use black as the base there. This one is 2.5 by 2.5. It's exactly 2 of the small squares. So we needed 8 that were 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, and then we need 1 that is 2.5 by 2.5. And I'm going to line that up with my outside edge of the 2 small squares. I'm going to look on the inside. And truthfully, when you cut this one, you could go 2.5 plus a smidge, a hair. It can go just a tiny bit bigger because you're not allowing for the space in between. And because you don't need the space, it's all one big piece. And it's okay not to have that. And then this one is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. And that goes inside here with your sentiment. Now, I'm not going to glue this one down because I need to decide what sentiment. In the interest of time, I want to go on to the next one and not take time to stamp the sentiment. But I would stamp the sentiment on here first, and then I will put it down. The reason I do that is because if I completely mess this up and I smear the sentiment, I can just grab another piece of white paper. Not a big deal. If I glue this down already, then I'm all worried about getting a perfect imprint. You know, it doesn't matter whether I use my Misty or whatever. I'm worried about getting a perfect imprint on there because the paper's already glued down. So I'm not going to glue this one down for that reason. And then this would then go on, thought I had one cut, maybe I do not. It would then go on to a black base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 folded. So the folded cards, so this base would go on there, and minus that, that's what you would have. Okay, so any of these, you could just make this portion of it. You could put this on here, and you could put an image in here, or you could leave that off and put an image in here. This makes a great journal card. Just like that, can go into a journal. Doesn't need to be mounted for journal space. You can just write on the back like a regular journal card. Okay, let's go to the third and final of today's cards. Once I get going on cards with scraps, there's so many different ways to do cards with scraps. Last challenge you gave us, make a clean journal. I get more oohs and ahs from it. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that was something that was really out of a lot of people's wheelhouses, you know, when we make grungy things. Okay, so this one, we're using 3/4 inch strips. So let me put this aside for a moment. These are 3/4 inch strips. They could be 5 or 6 inches long. These aren't all the same because the scraps weren't all exactly the same. But we need to cut these corner to corner. So I cut them the same way. I took the big piece of paper out here, and then I just moved them over 3/4 of an inch at a time and chopped them off. So that's fast. But this portion, I'm going to put corner to corner and just cut them like that. So we end up with 2 triangles out of the one strip. So take a minute and do that. And if you put them in here and it moves a little bit or gets hung up like that, and when you get down, it's not an exact point, it's kind of square on the end because it moved a bit, don't worry about it. It won't even matter. It won't even matter. We just need to get us a bunch of corner to corner triangles. And this one, you can use one scrap of paper that is printed on both sides and just go every other one, every other piece is every other side. I have done that, and I think I've got a sample of that one to show you. You can use a variety of papers. Like this one is all black and white, but it's a variety of different papers. I just had a small, literally a small scrap of each one of these left, but they're all black and white, so that's great. You could use a whole variety of colors. Done it with like all the colors of the rainbow, and that looks really cool as an end result as well. So don't get too hung up on exactly what it is. Sometimes when we don't overthink it and just grab whatever colors are pretty. When I use a whole variety of colors, the thing that I try to do is put like a flowery print next to a chevron or a straight line or something, so they're not, just so that your eye can see this print and then that print. Okay, so here's our base. There's our card. Here is the card. So this can be done a variety of ways. It could have been done this way, and I could turn that sentiment again. It's just a scallop with a white circle punched out, and I stamped my sentiment on before putting it on here. And you could put white inside to write on, or just use a white gel pen. Okay, so there's one. Here's one where I took one scrap of paper and cut it into these strips, and then I just flipped every other one. The script or print writing was on the back, and the botanical stuff was on the front. So I just flipped every other one. And so, they all match, but they all coordinate. But it's very different. Just, there was so much different color in it. And instead of making this one a card, I decided that I will do a nice like scalloped corner. And I just put the circle on and put the bird on because I liked all the botanicals. And this will be a journal card. So it does not have to be always, the front of a card. It can be a journal card. This would be super cute. All of these would be super cute on in doing a bookmarks and belly bands and things like that. You could actually take a big piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12, and put the squares, cover the entire thing with the squares, and then cut it up into journal cards, belly bands, bookmarks, ATCs, that kind of thing. I was just looking to see if I have really handy. I actually made a book cover, and I don't know, there's my scraps from the cover. I wanted to show you the cover. I have not completed the cover, but I did an 8.5 by 11 and to fold it in half and make the cover of a book with one of my absolute favorite paper packs. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We've got these. Now, I'm only going to use the one side, and I do kind of want to see which different ones I have, because I don't know how many I have of each one. I know, like this one, I don't think I have many at all. So I'm just going to kind of separate them, maybe, to see what I have. I don't know that this is even going to be enough. Maybe I would have to cut more, but we'll get started on it and find out. If I need to cut more, I can. I can find some other black and white scraps, or one of those doesn't belong. The other thing I like with black and white is a pop of color. So I could every so often pop in a bright red and make it black and white and red, or fuchsia or electric blue or something like that. Whatever you like. Let's see here. We catch up on some comments. Love the conversation that's going on. Yeah. I love that, Carrie. I love the journals to keep track of different things, the different projects that you're doing, organized by type. Thank you, Margie. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Glennis and her love for the gory stuff. The zombies. If you want to know how to do zombies, Glennis is your girl to teach you that. Okay, I told you I would tell you my thought about the hearts. Sylvia, I did have a thought about hearts, and I think it's worth a try. So if you have a heart, pretend that the square is a heart. If this is the point, and then the heart comes out like this, what if you were to take a bunch of hearts and put the points in the middle, all the points together, and the hearts going around in the circle? Now, they're not going to go all the way to the edge, but I think you could make a circle of hearts with the points all meeting in the center. And you'd probably want an odd number of hearts to complete that circle, a tiny bit of space in between them, just like the squares. And then you might be able to, I'd have to do it to see if it would work, but when you come out, put a heart between the hearts for your second row out that might meet the edge of the paper. That's worth a try for heart lovers. So I've got a whole bunch here. These are ones that I cut. I just was grabbing scraps and cutting them, and I used almost all of them. I think I did use all of them in this one. Didn't really worry about what was what or what matched what. And I've got more sitting there now that I can make a few more cards with. So we're going to try this black and white one right here. So what you do, and honestly, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can tell on this one that I started almost at the point. The point where they meet is about right here. There's a little gap underneath this that you can't see because it's covered. So I started about right here. On this one, I started up here so that I could go all the way around. And so the empty hole gap is clear up here. So this could be glued on this way. It could have been glued on this way. It could be done this way, starburst. And it could be done this way, and the sentiment just completely upside down, or, would be right side up. So many different ways that you can do that. So the point being that when you start gluing this down, don't even worry about where you start and think I messed that up, because you really didn't, because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to put some glue down here. Now, you could use tape runner on this. This is actually a really good place to use a tape runner because it's not going to dry so fast. I'm going to start up a little higher so I can go all the way around. And I'm just going to glue these. Now here's one that's squared on the end because I missed the corner. It moved when I went to use it. Doesn't matter. You're not going to see it. This glue dries super fast, so I'm trying not to go out too far with the glue. But double stick tape would be a really good place for this. You could also use a a glue stick if you trust them. If you trust your glue stick that it's gonna stick for a long time. I don't know. They stick great at first, and then it seems like after a period of time or years that they just dry out, and things pop off. So just don't feel super confident about that. I don't think I'm going to have enough strips here to get this whole thing. Okay, so we're just going to let it hang over. So you can see that they actually don't need to be very long. And we could also cut these off and use the other ends. So for now, I could put double stick tape on here and just give it really good coverage so that everything's on the tape. That would work. And might actually be easier than putting the glue down all the time. You could also use a glue that doesn't dry quite so fast. Bye, Sylvia. Yes, please do post on the Facebook group. And give me a minute. I'll pull up Glennis's creations. This is a super thin strip too, so of glue. So the thinner your bead of glue, the faster it's going to dry. And all I'm doing is putting them down and shoving them into the one, the one next to it to make sure that they're nice and tight. I don't want to see the gap between this one. But you can see that you can use up quite a bit of scraps doing some of these things. Let's see. And once they're all cut, it goes down pretty quickly, especially if you've got, your stack of cuttings right here. So it's drying pretty quickly. Now I'm putting glue on top of dried glue. Let's see, what don't I have right there? I only have 2 of these, so it's not going very, very far. Okay, let's go back over to this side. Quickly get the rest of these guys down. If you had a variety of colors and you kind of like a pattern, you could lay them all out and just go boom, boom, boom down the row and use one after the other. And have the same pattern repeated. When you use lots of colors, it's really pretty to just do it randomly. Grab whatever and get all those colors in there. That always turns out really pretty. Okay, so I'm not going to have enough to go all the way around. And that's okay, because we're going to get these as far as they'll go. And same one. It's really close. It's the same one. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because the last 2 would be 3 in a row of the same one. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over, and because there's some of them are still wet, I'm going to cut these off. Okay, so now I'm going to bring some of these in here. And And the longest, I'm going to try to find some of the longest ones and use, let's see what's on. I could use the back side too. It's more gray and white than black and white, but it will, it's all right. Gray goes with black. Put that in here. And didn't think to flip that one over either, but I can use the back side of that one. Now I'm getting sticky fingers. And I'm going to try to find which ones are the longest of these ones I just cut off. And I'm going to use the longest ones right here. And I'm not going to worry about having a hole over here, because remember, that's where our circle or sentiment is going to go. So it's okay to have that gap. In fact, we expect it. If there's not a gap, they're not all going to fit in nicely in the end. Okay, and we need a couple more. I'm gonna overlap that just a little bit because the end is thicker than what it would normally be, and leaving enough room for one more down here on the bottom. I was hoping not to need another one. There we go. And I just want to cut that end off, kind of where that center has been. And so I can put one more piece over here on this side. And I want that to be a big enough piece that it covers this down here. And I've got all kinds of stickies going on here. Okay, and I'm going to just cut that end off. Okay, flip it over, cut off our extras. Okay, and then, since it's black and white, I'll stick with black and white on here. And actually, first I'm gonna glue it onto here. So this one opens this way or up. So I could look at this and say, do I want it to open up? Or do I want the sentiment to be over there? Or do I want the sentiment to be over here? Or do I want it to open this way? Maybe this way, and the sentiment on the bottom, then it's more like a starburst. So let me first just glue this down. So it's a fun way to do some scrap busting and also get something that is useful. If you don't like to throw away scraps, you've got to find a way to use them. So the challenge to you is either use them or lose them. Use them up or move them on. All right, so now I'm going to look at my sentiment, and I could put a white base here. Oh, I kind of like it that way too. I could put the white here and the black inside, or I could put the black here and the white inside. I think that's what I will do. I will put the black scallop down. You could use any shape here. If you have tag or label shapes, punches or dies, you could use those. So I'm going to put that down right there. And again, I am not going to put my white in the center until I punch the sentiment first. That way, if my sentiment gets messed up, I'm not stressed over it. I can just punch a new one and put that on there. Great way to use strips. Both of them actually use strips. The 3/4 inch strips are the smaller ones. If you were doing a larger card, it'd be easy to use larger strips. The reason I stick with the 3/4 is because it's such a small card. But if you were doing I don't know, what is it, A7, a larger card or a 6x6 square card, you could use larger strips and that would look really cool, actually. So this one opens sideways. This one opens sideways, but is landscape. So literally do those any way you want. This one I'm going to call a journal card. I'm going to give it some nice scalloped corners. And I inked just a little bit around that center. So I'll ink just a little bit around here to take this dark white off, but I don't think it needs much of anything. And then there's a nice journal card to put in a journal. Space to write. Love space to journal in an actual journal, right? So then we've got our square ones of different sizes. And we've got our square ones more organized. So, I mean, look at that. You sit down and cut yourself some strips and can, cut those while you're watching a movie. Cut strips that you can cut into squares of various sizes while you're watching TV or something, or while you're sitting around relaxing. And then you sit down with a tray of those and you can make all kinds of cards out of them. Hey, Becky. I'm so glad to see you. I am really happy to see you, Becky. And I hope you will, because you are an accomplished card maker. I am not. This is cards for those of us who don't know how to make cards. But, those of you who are accomplished card makers like Becky can embellish these and add on to them and do whatever you want to them. But please, please post your pictures in the Facebook group so the rest of us can see and get ideas and be inspired and motivated by those things that you are making. So, yeah, use the backs. Use the backs to write on. Yeah, journal spots, definitely. See those shapes, and I want to make paper beads. Oh, yes, that's exactly. I have a pouch full of longer strips, Gary, that are like an inch at one end and down to nothing. I think I did inch strips and then cut those crosswise, same as these. And that pouch is just for paper bead making. So, yeah, that's a whole other thing you can do with scraps. Awesome, Becky. Then we will see you every Monday. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you. It's about the most I ever get to see you, huh? All right, it is 1:12. We had a great hour together. I enjoyed being with you. I hope you got a couple of ideas. I hope you are ready to dive in and use some of your scraps up. And then all these other little things, these offcuts, I'll keep these squares. I will sit down and make some more cards and just use them up. Use them up right now while they're cut, while they're ready to go. But all the little offcuts, when I'm done making these cards, take Margie's example and toss them. Toss them into the trash. It is very freeing to get rid of some of these things because I guarantee none of you are ever going to run out of paper. We have so much paper on our shelves. We're not going to run out of paper. We don't need to hoard the scraps. So let them go. Let it go. Let it go. Laptop is about to die. Time to go make some cards, Melanie. Thanks for being here. You guys have the rest of a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.